Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to see you. We are in the third part of a really extraordinary teaching called Eliminating Future Adversities. And it comes from Atisha. And just to review, in the first part, we talked about how quickly we can lose our mind training when times are difficult, and how we can make 4 decisions primary in our mind so that we maintain the mind training at all times. And essentially, it boiled down to understanding that the root of all of our suffering has to do with this conception we have built that there is a me mind that needs to be protected at all costs. And that the path is piercing that bubble of illusion. And in the second part, we talked about the method. And the method had 3 examples, like a Mongol taming a tiger. First, we have to build all of the skills. Then vanquishing through direct encounter, starting with a very simple arising, building our skill on easily observed and conquered affliction, so that when we're confronted by a greater affliction, we know just what to do. And then the third method was mocking the afflictions. From there, this extraordinary commentary went into then how do we lose self-grasping? What are the practical methods? And part 2 explained how to think about in the flash of bodhicitta. So I'm going to just review. The practice of Tonglen begins with flashing on our own bodhicitta and sitting with that. Then starting with something entirely neutral that's slightly difficult, like breathing in smoky air or slightly more dense air, maybe humid air, or an odor, then taking an affliction that is from someone near and dear to us, where it would naturally arise. Please, if I could, I would take that pain on for you and give you whatever you needed that I had. And then extending that through our understanding of our interconnection with all sentient beings. So part 2 focused on that flash of bodhicitta and understanding that we can gather afflictions of those near and dear, and also that of all sentient beings, because we allow our mind to become spacious. And it gave the example of including ourselves and the suffering into a vast white light that becomes smaller and smaller and smaller until it becomes totally empty. The other example was to visualize a light that increases in size and a capacity to hold the sufferings of all sentient beings, and that vast space can swallow all the different kinds of suffering, and that we rest our mind in the vast emptiness that has released, like a cloud releases into the sky, all those sufferings. So the third part, the part that we are working with this morning, talks about, its general title is Purpose, but it says this method is a counterpoint to happiness, a closure to our misery, a friend that commiserates with us when we're alone, and our nurse for when we are sick. So it's another set of examples, and it takes all the learning that we've been doing and connects it to illusory body practice, really, seeing, the construction of that self to be absolutely empty of any intrinsic existence. So the great counterpoint to happiness. We are in samsara, and we have the general sufferings of sickness, old age, and death. And often when things are difficult, we turn to practice. That's a great, this anger is arising, take it to meditation. This grief is arising, take it to meditation. It's slightly more difficult to take happiness into meditation, and that's why it's considered a counterpoint to happiness. The great illusion of samsara is that in some way it can be fixed, that in some way there's going to be an accessible happiness and peace that we can grab onto, we can hold, and that we can just rest in. Essentially, we know it's not true from our experience, but we think we can be like in our bed with a duvet that's fluffy over our head and everything will be okay. That somewhere that exists in samsara. So mind training invites us to really now look at what we imagine our happiness to be when we're experiencing it. For instance, we had a really lovely day yesterday at the farm, and there was just a gentle rain. The farm was glorious. The meal that Maureen prepared was just delicious and served with such beauty. So we think, oh, this is so pleasant, so happy. And immediately we want to hold on to it. We want for it to last just another minute. We want the friends that are gathered, how lovely it is to see everybody. That whole moment in its richness. If we could just bottle that, wouldn't it be lovely if our whole lives were that pleasant? But of course, everything is impermanent, and the rain got harder, the people dispersed. If we wanted to find imperfection, I'm sure we could. The tea got cold, all the strawberry ice cream was eaten. So there was no permanently existing happiness that we could say, I'm just going to sit here and everything in samsara will be fine. And so this mind training asks us to look in the same way we look at our suffering. Where does this happiness come from? Where is it? Where is that pleasant feeling? Where does it abide or seem to abide? And what is the nature of this pleasantness? And we start to see that even the most lovely and pleasant things in samsara are impermanent. They're not a lasting experience, and they give rise to a kind of grasping of I want more, I want it to stay, I want it to last, which is the self grasping at happiness. It is the great closure to our misery, is the second. So we bring all of this wealth of experience of examining our minds, and now after months and years and decades of practice, we understand when any misery arises, this is, there's a wonderful teaching that's called the Wheel of Sharp Weapons that has a refrain. When something happens, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning. So it is the wheel of my karma returning. That whatever we experience, good and bad, is the consequences of the causes and conditions that we have created, the root of which is grasping onto this self. And this teaching reminds us again of two folk adages. One is, if there's no target, then the arrow can't reach anything. So if there's no self-grasping, no matter what arrow is being shot towards you, with no self-grasping, there's no target that can be reached. So if we put down the target, then there are no arrows. Again, relating everything to the root of the belief in a permanently existing self that needs to be protected. And the other adage I was not familiar with, but it's equally lovely. The birds cannot land if the roof was not erected. So again, we erect the illusion of a truly existing self, and then all the birds can land on it. All of samsara can build itself in terms of sickness, old age, and death. The third, the friend that commiserates with you if you live alone. So another very sweet teaching that when we are alone with our minds, we see the subtle aspect of samsara that's discontented. If we're inside, we want to go outside. If we're outside, we want to go inside. If we're on our computers, we want to find just another window that has just what we want. And we want to make one more click and one more click, or on our phones. That basic raw discontent. So again, we bring our mind training to the fore, and by taking that subtle discontent into our Tonglen practice, we're immediately no longer alone. We're practicing with and for our friends and family, and with and for all of life. So there's no pain of being alone. There is a purpose and a contribution. For those folks who have gone on long retreats, a deep loneliness can arise, and a deep pain of missing families and friends can arise. And as soon as we take that to Tonglen, we remember again, it appears as though we're alone in our meditation cabin, but we're holding in our heart all sentient beings, and we're not only interconnected, but our minds are interconnected. So the wisdom and skill that we're building is applied to all of life as we're meditating through our ever deepening bodhicitta, which is overflowing and reaching and touching sentient beings, and or available to sentient beings. And the fourth one, it is the nurse when you are sick. So really, human beings have not changed much. So the teaching in this is, when you're sick, it's easy to think of the nurse. Why aren't they doing more for me? Why aren't they coming the minute I'm ringing my bell? And why isn't my family doing more for me? They owe it to me to be here, to do this or that. And, you just have to laugh and say, oh my goodness, yes, I'm sure. If I'm not having those thoughts, I certainly would have those thoughts. And so we understand again, when illness arises, the very root is self-grasping. So there is no blame. Why is this happening to me? There is an appreciation. If we receive even any medicine, but let's say here in the West we receive fabulous medicine, extraordinarily well-trained doctors and nurses. So appreciation for what we're receiving gives us even one more minute, one more month, year of life. How can we use this life to benefit all sentient beings, to see clearly that root of self-grasping and pierce that bubble? And it goes further right in this moment with a deepening of the how. And now it addresses a beautiful teaching on illusory body. How is it that we perceive the self in terms of our body and mind and the experiences that we have? And the instructions are to contemplate that your body and your experiences are not different from a magician's show. So in this time and place, we can compare it to a movie or TV. When we're watching TV, or even better, when, in the old days when we saw a movie on a large screen, our imagination went into the world of the movie, and we felt the emotions of what the actors were portraying, the story. We moved along as though these were our friends and relatives being connected. The movie took over our experience, right? And then if we were to just stop for a minute in the movie, we could see there's a projector projecting light going through a film and appearing on a screen. In the same way, we have the light of our mind, the clarity and capacity to know, moving through the film of our karmic history. That karmic history creates the circumstances that we're experiencing. And it is, from a bigger picture, just as illusory as a movie. So we can start to really contemplate, here is our body. Our body is made up of elements, the element of earth and a rock. Does a rock experience suffering? The element of water, does a water experience suffering? Is the ocean is polluted, but does the ocean experience suffering? Does the water element in the ocean experience suffering? Similarly with the winds. The winds are constantly moving. Do they experience suffering? So here we are, made up of earth, air, fire, and water. Those are the elements that are the body. Then we have the mind. And if we were to build on last week's teaching, the mind is clear and aware. The mind has a vast spaciousness and a quality that is knowing. And in the mind, all kinds of things arise. The experience on the farm, and the taste of the food, and the greenness of the landscape, and all the different lovely people. They were all in the vastness of this clarity that has the capacity to know. And so when we look at the continuum of that vastness with the clarity to know, all those experiences were yesterday. They don't exist in this moment. This moment can't be found. Future moments can't be found. There is the clarity with the capacity to know, and lots passing through it. But when we look at any individual thing within the mind, it's not findable, and the mind is not findable. So the concluding teaching is to see clearly through bringing all of our experiences into our practice and really look at where is the experience? Is the experience in the body or the mind? Is there anything that's different in a permanent way? Things appear momentarily, but is there anything graspable in the same way? Is the illusion of a movie graspable? If we went out to touch the actors in the movie, there's no way to touch them. So this is a very deep teaching, and for now, experiment with it with curiosity. This is something that takes great time and contemplation to fully understand. The second part of it is to see speech as an echo. So we have the body and mind and the speech. So much of our painful experiences, we might say, come from what we're hearing, what we're perceiving through sound. And it says, really understand that all sound, all speech is like an echo. So let's say you're fighting with your nearest and dearest, and you're hearing all these harsh words. If you were to go out to a canyon and you were to yell those same words and hear the echo, you'd know it's just an echo. It's my choice to ascribe meaning to an echo. An echo is empty. You could scream a horrible thing and you'd hear an echo and you'd know, well, that's just an echo. There's nothing graspable, no enemy in the echo. So to see the illusory nature of the body, speech, and mind. And then finally, to rest in the clear light mind. So resting in the mind, allowing all thoughts to subside, and really look directly at that clear light mind and see, is there any coming and going in that clear light mind? So it's not findable, it's not graspable, but it also doesn't have a coming and going. So this is quite an extraordinary finale to this three-part teaching. Many of these aspects of the teaching we can investigate in depth another time, but it gives an introduction of how to take the bodhicitta meditation of Tonglen, to use that Tonglen meditation to burst the bubble, the illusion of a permanently existing self, and to use that as a skillful means to understand or begin to understand what ultimate bodhicitta is, that clear light mind that has the resonance of limitless compassion and loving kindness. So I'm going to stop here because this is a lot of information in a short amount of time. So let's just sit with this, and I invite you to take one piece of it that is resonating for you this morning. It could be about the nurse for when you're sick, the friend when you're alone, the closure to your misery, the counterpoint to happiness, or even how is it through this that we understand the nature of the illusion itself? or the illusory body teachings. Now let's bring this into a brief Tonglen practice. This practice that we've been studying almost 2 years as we've been studying Lojong, and how this is the practice, the meditation practice connected to Lojong, and how it's been opening our hearts. And now we have an invitation through this final teaching to move from a relative understanding to an ultimate understanding, connecting it into the boundlessness of a beginning introduction to emptiness. So let's ground our minds with the confidence of our Buddha nature, that we have the capacity through the relative to connect to a vast and limitless loving kindness and compassion, with no hesitation, no fear, no boundary. There's a wonderful saying in Zen translation: sentient beings are numberless, I vow to save them all. So we have that intention of benefiting countless sentient beings, and we're starting where we are today and building skills. So the first skill is touching base with confidence in Buddha nature, or touching base with our mind when thoughts have subsided, that has an openness, and the seeds of bodhicitta in our relationship to the love that we feel, that is naturally arising as we contact in this case, we start with uncomplicated relationships, the love we feel for perhaps our animal friends, perhaps for nature. We can really see what it feels like to have a moment of fearless openness. And as we're able to sustain this and enlarge it, we start again very simply. Where does our hesitation, our doubt, our fear arise? We can test it by breathing in a denseness, an oiliness, maybe a foul odor, smoky. We see that doubt arise, and we allow that doubt and fear to just dissipate. Really holding the openness to the best of our ability, remembering the instructions to make that connection to not only our Buddha nature, but the bodhicitta of the great beings, to make a vast spaciousness of light that holds our minds, any doubt and hesitation, and allow it to dissipate in that vast spaciousness, resting in that clear light. Now thinking of someone close, near and dear to your heart, an animal friend that might be sick, a child in your kinship circle, where even a minute of their suffering is unbearable to you, and your heart opens and you just say, please give me this moment of suffering. I freely take it on, and I breathe out to you my contentment, my peacefulness, my happiness. And through that child, that baby, that animal, that area of nature, we take this practice as far as we can, heaping that kind of suffering. So may all the children that at this moment are having a little bit of a hard time, a little fever, a little coughing, may all the sweet animal beings who are experiencing old age, may all the animals that are sick and confused, they have pain and they don't understand it. In any way we want to imagine it, we heap through our imagination that type of suffering. As we get more skills, we can expand our heart further, taking them into our clear light mind. Again, noticing, where does doubt, hesitation, and fear arise? What is the nature of the mind that has fear? What is the nature of the body that fears harm? And finally, what is this knowing capacity and this vastness of space that holds all the experiences that I believe is an I, a me, a mind? Is there anything that is graspable? Anything that we can hold onto and make it last? Make it touchable like our heart is touchable in our body? Is it different from a thought that moves through the mind? Resting in the exploration and resting in the not knowing. So as we close this morning, before we do the dedication, I'd like to talk a little bit about the activities in India, and then I'll invite Kathy to talk about the Sunday Dharma class. So I am, as you know, coordinating an extraordinary event in India. And someone asked me an interesting question Saturday, that, was this going to be a Tibetan Buddhist or a Drikung event? And it made me think again about the meaning of the event in India. So when the Buddha was dying, the monks gathered around him and said, "Oh, dear teacher, what should we do when you leave? What teachings should we follow? How do we continue?" And Buddha said, when I'm gone, rely on the Vinaya. And the Vinaya is the guidelines for monks and nuns. But from the perspective of Lord Jigten Sumgun, it's the guideline to liberation. And so whether it is a monk or a nun or a lay person, they're all realizations about letting go of attachment and aggression and piercing the bubble of self-grasping through understanding of the particular vows that we hold. So for monks and nuns, nuns in particular hold 348 vows, and it's not only the guidelines that are in the vows, but it's the guidelines of building a harmonious community and a flow of a practice life. In that flow of a practice life, monks and nuns gather for 3 months of the rainy season. If you're in a solitary practice, you come together with the monastic community, if you're able, for 3 months of practice. And during those 3 months, there's a particular emphasis on studying and understanding the Vinaya, and doing in the context of making a harmonious community. And when we see how difficult it is to build a harmonious family, to build a harmonious city, to build a harmonious world, we start to understand the significance of a group of people committed to using the Dharma to live in harmony and to hold in common guidelines that direct our minds towards those moments of attachment and aggression, and using that focus on extraordinary mindfulness of a practice in that context to destroying the illusion of self. So when we think of how important this is, we can imagine that in 2,000 years since the Buddha was alive, the teachings of the Dharma went to every continent and many, many diverse cultures. And so over time, the way people practice in Thailand, if we look from the outside, might look different from the way people practice in Tibet or in Taiwan or in Korea. And to some degree, the Dharma teachings went into cultures, and then the enlightened beings in those cultures looked at how do people learn and how can I transmit the teachings the best way for this culture's style of learning. and for this moment of time and what this time needs. So even though it looks different from the outside, the Vinaya itself didn't change. The vows that I hold are the exact same vows that the fully ordained hold in Thailand, in Korea, in Taiwan, in Tibet, in Bhutan, in Nepal. They are exactly the same. So when we come together as a world community, and really it's the first time as a world community and nuns are gathering in Sharvasti, the very place where the Buddha taught the Dharma for 25 years, the root of the Dharma, when we come together as a world community, even though we're coming from different cultures and different ways of practice, the monastic guidelines and vows and tradition of coming together during the rainy retreat is exactly the same. And so then here we are, and a lot of our discussion as the teaching faculty for this gathering has been how do we welcome these different cultures, what are the different mores, what are the different traditions of practice, so that we form a harmonious community, people feel welcome and at home, and in that come together to study the Vinaya yet again, that has been practiced for 2,000 years, and share what we've learned in this time and place and in this culture that we're coming from. So even the planning of how to create this event has been an extraordinary blessing. And just now we have nuns coming from Nepal, Bhutan, different nunneries in India, Taiwan, Vietnam, and different countries in the West. And so we have 5 language groups, and we're creating this moment where time stops, and we see, oh, in this place where everything began, we still have this same root, and we still have the purpose of the root of practice, just as we've been discussing today, of bursting the illusory bubble of the self. And this is all the vision of His Holiness Drikung Chetsang Rinpoche, who is reviving practice in this sacred site, and seeing that in this time and place we have to look at not at our differences, but the root of Buddhism that we share, even though it's expressed differently in different cultures. So, Kathy, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll be gone for almost 4 months, 3.5 months or so. And so, Kathy, I'm going to put you in the center. Oh, maybe we should do the dedication prayers first, and then I'll invite Kathy to just give a highlight of how exciting it will be while I'm away. Okay. Annie, I think you're seeing the dedication now.
By this virtue, may I achieve omniscience, and may all who travel on the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Ishvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. Embodiment of the three precious jewels, Padmapani, who holds the teachings of the victorious one, seeing the all-goodness meaning with the wisdom eye, may you who are spontaneously established activities live long for hundreds of kalpas. Noble Manjushri, the Lord of Speech, who manifests to hold the teachings of the triple gem, who raises the lamp of the sage's teachings, may you who are the light of the Dharma live long for hundreds of kalpas. The one known in the Holy Land as Aryadeva emanated into the Gar clan of Eastern Tibet as Chidingpa, the heart son of Jigten Sumgan. May the life of glorious Garchen remain steadfast for 100 eons. We acknowledge that Vajra Dakini Nunnery is on the traditional unceded land of the Wabanaki Confederacy, the stewards of this land for many centuries before European settlement. We honor all Indigenous peoples' beliefs, cultural heritage, their relationship with the land, the knowledge of their elders, and the spirit of the ancient ones. This recognition of Indigenous territorial land and beliefs is a small step along the long road of recognizing the truth of our shared history and moving towards reconciliation. We will continue this journey with our Indigenous neighbors as we weave our paths together in right relation.
Okay. Kathy.
So, hi everyone. And I appreciate that story that Khenmo told of the Buddha leaving and his disciples, kind of wringing their hands. And originally, that's how this news kind of settled in. And but in working with Khenmo and a whole team of folks, what I was struck with is Khenmo sharing with us her confidence in this Sangha that has come together under extraordinary circumstances. We're pixelated, and yet there's this strong connection and with each other, and these events that these in-person events are very precious, but then released, and yet we stay strong and connected. So Khenmo has a great confidence in us as a Sangha. That's all of us, and it is our way of participating in this larger vision of His Holiness, and with the nuns that are coming from around the world. This is really an opportunity to connect with something much larger than ourselves. It is a great opportunity to pop that bubble and come together. So that's what I'd like to share, the full confidence and the opportunity to grow stronger as a Sangha. So we have a great lineup of visiting teachers, continuing with the shared wisdom that we all have and have shared along the way. So we'll also continue in the Drikung tradition when meditations are shared and so on. So anyway, I look forward to seeing everyone on Sundays, the Tuesdays and Thursdays. All programs will continue. And I also encourage you to go on the website and look at what this Varsa is all about, and understanding Khenmo's role in it, and that we are part of that Varsa here in the United States. So I'll leave you with that.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. What Kathy didn't say is this is my last Sunday, and the program starts next Sunday, and there's a combination of wonderful teachers, Khenmo Trinley, is going to give several sessions on the four immeasurables, and Ayasanta Chita is going to teach, and everyone in the Sangha was invited to also contribute as a discussion leader, to take an area that has touched their heart and lead a discussion through one of the Lojong slogans or one of these mind trainings that we've been working with in Tonglen. So I think you'll have quite a wonderful meditation experience. And it's interesting. I didn't connect the Buddha dying with this change, but there's always a sense of why did the Buddha, why is one of his significant acts leaving? And the significance of the extraordinary teacher leaving, we watch Garchen Rinpoche getting older every year, and His Holiness is maybe 5 years older than I am. It's because if we think the teacher is always there, then we think they will always remind us of what they taught, and we don't have to remember ourselves. And so there's a sense of there's this basket, this heritage, this legacy of teachings, and it's in your lap. Now let's share what we've learned and use these tools. So it is a little bit after 11. We don't have time for discussion this morning. And if you have questions, I don't leave physically quite yet, so you can email questions to me. But I really feel this last teaching was such a finale of of all of these mind training systems. It couldn't get more large and more complete than that, I don't think. It's only in our practice now that it will be really complete. So how wonderful to practice together today. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for everyone who's volunteered to be on the team maintaining our wonderful, harmonious, very heart-connected Sangha. And we'll have all the information we can on the website of the different teachers coming, and a little more about their background as well. As the Wi-Fi is iffy, we aren't allowing people to photograph during the Varsa, otherwise there would be hundreds of phones going all the time. So since I made the rule, I have to keep the rule. So I'm not sure how many pictures I'll be able to send, but when I can, I will. So take care.
Thank you, Khenmo, and
Thank
safe
you
and
so
healthy.
much, everyone. Thanks, Annie.
Have a great experience.
Thanks.
We'll be
Safe,
thinking of you.
safe
Thank
and
you
healthy,
so much, everyone.
safe and healthy journey, Khenmo.
Right.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so very much.